Welcome in to Bears Weekly, powered by IGS Energy, a Chicago Bears network production. Bears Weekly is brought to you by Advocate Healthcare, Athletico Physical Therapy, CD Gallagher, Connie's Pizza, IGS Energy, and Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Jeff Joniak, a.k.a. the Mayor of Bearsville, and his sidekick, Tom the Surfmaster Thayer.
Well, the Bears rookie class is set to report to training camp on Saturday. The rest of the roster next Tuesday. It's time to fly. It's Bears Weekly here on ESPN 1000 on the Bears Radio Network with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer. We're joined by former Bears quarterback Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio. I'm Jeff Joniak. Coming up in the program, we visit with Bears kicker Cairo Santos. We keep saying that Cole Kmet, Tom, is the longest tenured Bear, but Cairo's right there with him, 6th year in the league with the Bears.
Yeah, I was thinking about that in doing the interview and listening to it, that the fact that it's nice when you get to talk to a kicker over a period of time because it gives you security in the position. And I think that's really important when you think about the moving back of the extra points, the difference in the kickoff rules and the other things that Cairo is able to do. So I think he plays an important role on this team.
Dan Barilli, Jordan Treadup, Katie Fox, our producers, as well as our producer in the ESPN studios tonight, Jake Santos. Eric Ostrowski is the director of the Chicago Bears Radio Network. Big Jim, I know you're going to be hitting the road. What's your first training camp start on SiriusXM NFL Radio? Is it the beloved? Because we're going to be doing it here in a while.
Yeah, we will be doing Chicago. That'll be the 24th and 25th. But no, Jeff, I start with in-division rival, the Detroit Lions. So that will be on Tuesday.
You're going to have good intel.
Upcoming. Yeah, should have some really good intel. So, and I'm going to ask quite a bit about, obviously, Ben Johnson. I'm going to see quite a bit and, be interesting to see him conduct his first training camp as a head coach.
Yeah, Tommy, week 2. That's going to be something at Detroit.
Yeah. It is. It's going to be just massive because of so many reasons. The new coaching staff in Detroit, the whole change of the culture there inside that building. Ben Johnson is going to walk onto the field as the head coach of the division rival Chicago Bears. It is going to be an atmosphere unlike any others for Ben on that day. And it's just going to be the same thing for J.J. McCarthy when he walks into Soldier Field as the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. So you think about the emotional impact in the early part of Ben's new journey in the NFL. It's not going to be overlooked, but it's going to be such an interesting storyline on the season.
All right, Tom, I know you're not on Twitter. Jim is. Jim checks in on this stuff. I saw a video this morning. I thought it was absolutely perfect timing. There's a video of a mom teaching her son how to block as an offensive lineman. It's absolutely hilarious. I will send you the video later, Tommy. It's at Football Great Moments, at FB Great Moments. She had all about the footwork, all about staying, bent at the hip, because she says, okay, come out of your stance. First thing you did was stand straight up. And she was on him. You will be proud of this mom. Hands inside, keeping it in the framework of perfect stuff, Big Jim. I love that as an interlude to the start of training camp. Even moms.
Well, yeah, I think everybody's excited about their team. Obviously, for the season of football as it just kicks off. College football is just around the corner. I saw how they're going to kick that off in great fashion as well. But it's just, again, the excitement, the build-up, the passion for football, I think, has grown. I think how you look at how the NFL has grown, how they're growing internationally, how the sport is kind of America's pastime now. It's kind of surpassed baseball and every other major league sport. And now you get the moms who are involved, and they're such a crucial part of it. It is a physical sport. There's a lot of contact involved. And for recent years, the safety of football's come into play, but mothers seem to be accepting of the safety changes that are made. And I think for years to come, I think the sport is in a really good spot.
You know, Jeff, my 8-year-old nephew, great nephew, John Henry, he's a lefty. And I have him practicing left-handed stance because he's going to be a big guy. And I always say left-handed stance makes you money. And so, you know, it's whether it's mom or an uncle or whomever, when you start getting into the minds of these young kids early in their life, it's something that they can carry through for the rest of their life.
You putting them through drills every day, Tommy? Are you doing footwork with him?
I do have him getting a stance every day, and I make sure that he gets in the left-handed balanced stance.
That's awesome.
You know, I say, John, get in a stance, and there he goes, left-handed. You know,
that's awesome. Let's talk about training camp, and the initial thing is I'm going to go with the health of individuals. So obviously, we're going to be interested to see where Braxton Jones is at. We'll hear from Ryan Poles on Tuesday up at Hallisall for a breakdown of who may be starting out, maybe on the early season injured list, or the PUP list or whatever. Maybe nobody. I don't know. But rookie first rounder Colston Loveland was at his charity event. He did some things there for Lurie Children's Hospital last week. So he felt that he would be ready to go, on track, not anticipating any restrictions once camp starts. But Jim, that is up to the medical staff, of course.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to get designations, whether it's PUP, physically unable to perform, non-football injury. I saw like several teams yesterday listed players that couldn't participate due to a non-football injury, so that'll take time for them to participate. Then guys who are coming off of injury and who will be fully cleared. So that's going to happen. So all these things are going to happen in succession of who's designated to practice, who won't be able to practice, and really the time periods when they'll be able to come back. Some guys will be placed on IR early, and that really won't, for them to even come off IR. I think there's designations like, week 8 is what that would entail. But a lot of rules, but the designations are important because it really gives you a time frame of potentially when a player could return.
Tom, AC joint surgery, what do you think of that? And he said one of the big things is he said the scar tissue is barely there anymore. Emphasize what that means, because everybody who has surgery, there is scar tissue that builds up and you got to break it down.
Well, first of all, it's the ability to move your shoulder in every way, shape, and form without any pain. And then once you get a chance to move your shoulder around in so many different positions that are required for football, now can you go into the weight room and start lifting weights to the point where it's going to make your shoulder stronger, all your deltoids, everything that supports the shoulder, and how you got it fixed. So I think that's an evaluation of all the doctors, plus to get an evaluation from Colson himself and understanding, okay, I have no pain in my shoulder. I have the ability to do this. I can get in a right-handed or left-handed stance, I don't even know what shoulder it is, with no pain. And then when you start getting on a bench press, or you get into some of the more strenuous exercises that focus specifically on the shoulder, and then that's when you get your weight staff involved. So there's a lot of different evaluators to the process of shoulder rehabilitation. So it's not only Colston, it's everybody else in that building.
That was a 6-month recovery from January surgery, so right on the timeline there. Also, with him, he played through a lot of that pain last year, Jim, and still put up great numbers at Michigan.
Yeah, well, players, there's numerous players that play with a ton of injuries, and, I think it says a lot about them that they're able to go out and contribute, but ultimately you're going to be judged on that as well. So there's kind of a fine line in dealing with that. I saw, who was it for the Raiders, the 7th-round draft pick quarterback who they took, O'Rourke, I believe. The young player, he played through a torn ACL all year at Indiana. And he's going to start, obviously, his first season on IR. And they still it was the 49ers is who it was who drafted him. And he went in the 7th round, and he's going to miss basically his initial training camp. Says a lot about the player that he was able to play through injury during that time period, but he will be unable to play. So it also comes into question about the training staffs at both the college level and the NFL level, because that injury was not seen until the NFL Combine. That's when he was diagnosed that, hey, your ACL is torn. And this young man played through an entire year of it at Indiana. So the medicals are important, but I think it does glean on a player's toughness, what their ability to play through, and how they perform. And now this young man should be able to perform a lot better moving forward.
You know, one thing, Jeff, about Colson Loveland, and I'm not giving away any secrets because it's going to be evident to anybody who's at practice. When you have a bad shoulder, you wear a shoulder harness, and it kind of keeps your shoulder in place to the point where it can't get to the position where maybe it can become out of the joint. So you're going to be able to see that from underneath his the sleeve on his shoulder. So I do think if that's something you want to see to get an indicator of where he's at, just look at that.
All right, one segment in the books. Coming up next, we'll dive into some other topics as the Bears get ready for a challenging season ahead. The schedule's difficult, the division tough, but so are the Bears. We'll find out more from Jim and Tom here on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
You're tuned into Bears Weekly with Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network. This is Bears Weekly with the voice of the Bears for 24 years, Jeff Joniak. On the Bears Radio Network.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy with Tom Thayer, Jeff Joniak, Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio. I was just jotting some things down as we look forward here. Obviously, the second-round pick thing is still a topic. As of this broadcast, the other domino in the second round really has fallen. That was last night, the 49ers. The number 43 overall pick, Alfred Collins, he reached a deal that includes about 88% of it guaranteed. I know the agents were all looking for the 32 second rounders to all get guaranteed money. Tyler Shuck is an interesting topic because he's a Saints quarterback who's looking for guaranteed money and has a chance to start in year one because of the circumstances there with Derek Carr retiring. Jim, what is your angle on this? The Bears have 3 second-round picks, so that's the significance there, and they're big parts of the future of the Bears.
Yeah, I think the Bears have all the leverage in their corner. You know, I think historically those two contracts really, when you look at Higgins for the Houston Texans and Schlesinger was the linebacker who were given fully guaranteed contracts in the second round. Those are the outliers. No team really has to fall in line. Granted, the agents are going to fight for that. There's no question about that. But I think from a team perspective, it hasn't been done before. So I think every team will be different. Again, the agents are going to fight for it now that it's kind of set precedents that is different now, but I don't think teams are going to fall in line. I think they're not going to guarantee the contracts, and they will fight to how it was previously prior to these two outlier deals.
Man, this is dangerous water. Because you talk about the new collective bargaining agreement that will eventually be negotiated. If the second rounders get fully guaranteed contracts, then you're going to see the third rounders start fighting for them. So this is a real slippery slope. You better get the language in place before you ever get that collective bargaining agreement negotiated. And you better get an understanding that this isn't something that's going to trickle down to the seventh rounders unless you then guarantee all the contracts for all rookie contracts. And that's not a good thing either because you take a little bit of the competitiveness away from it. So it's kind of a dangerous little area that they're getting into.
Jim, what opened the door to this?
Well, I think I don't know why Nick Caserio, the general manager of the Houston Texans, felt compelled to guarantee Higgins' contract. And really, it's Jalen Higgins. He was the first one to get a guaranteed contract in the second round. Maybe due to injury at that position, because right now Tank Dell is hurt down there in Houston. They just got rid of Stephon Diggs. So maybe they felt a need that it was a priority, should I say, that he gets to work right away. Meaning through the OTAs, they felt that was valuable time because he's probably going to be a very big contributor for the Houston Texans. And I would say the same thing about that for Schlesinger, the linebacker. The kid is very productive, a linebacker from UCLA who makes a lot of tackles, and he obviously must be in big plans for the team. So for them to guarantee them, I think they're going to be huge contributors. The other second rounders, That's not the case. Not all will have that big of a role for their team. They will be contributors, but I don't think so much so that they'd be a starter where you would want to guarantee their contract.
All right, so there have been a lot of people asking, who your top Bears are going to be this year, who the most valuable, and I'm always going to go with the offensive line, the entirety of it, which leads me to looking at to see not just the fact that we get the 5 guys that are going to start, get them on the field as soon as possible and work together for the entirety of training camp if necessary, if possible, and get ready to have a durable season. Because the Bears are going to face some really good pass rushers. And they're dotted all over the league. Not everybody has 2, but if they have a big one, and there are some really talented ones. And I was just looking at the teams the Bears are going to face, and maybe guys that don't even hit the radar quite like some of the popular names. Obviously, a guy like Myles Garrett. The Bears are going to face Myles Garrett. Cleveland led the league in pressure percentage when they rushed 4. This is obviously I'm looking at last year. Things are going to change, but Pittsburgh's Alex Highsmith, number 3 in pressure rate among edge defenders last year. You got Nick Bosa of the 49ers, Jonathan Grenard of Minnesota, Nnamdi Madubuike, the defensive tackle of Baltimore, is a bad man in there. That pressure defense. Max Crosby, the Vegas edge. Jalen Carter inside at Philly. The healthy return of Aiden Hutchinson. T.J. Watt in Pittsburgh. Micah Parsons, Dallas. And if Trey Hendrickson signs in Cincinnati, 87 total pressures led the NFL last year and 5th over the past 4 years. It's a big year, Tom, for the offensive line to protect that quarterback and for Caleb Williams to get rid of the football.
And for Ben Johnson. So if you have a pass rusher on a football team that's predictable, you know exactly where he's going to line up. Trey Hendrickson, Myles Garrett, Hutchinson. Then you can kind of predetermine your pass protection in that direction so you have a couple sets of eyes on them, or you have help before a tight end goes out in a pattern, or you have a back chipping. It's those guys that can play on the interior that had versatility. And a guy like Chris Jones comes to mind, or Aaron Donald when he was in the league. But what type of guys are they playing against that have that type of versatility? And then you get the defense that starts watching team in preparation to play against the offensive line. And the first thing they try to point out the vulnerability in their offensive line, or who's the worst pass blocking offensive lineman on that team. So then you got a guy like Myles Garrett, who's got that type of versatility, who can move anywhere that he feels that he can provide his strength in the pass pressure of the Cleveland Browns. So there's going to be a lot of scientific type of, experiments in the construction of this offense when you start playing these different individuals that you just brought up.
Jim, I know it's just a sample size, but I also read this. I think it was the Sharp football analysis. Quarterbacks took a sack on 21% of pressures last season, the highest rate over the last 5 seasons. And the impact of having a sack on a drive. It's self-explanatory, really, but if you don't get sacked on a drive, there was a 41% score rate last year and a 26% touchdown rate. You take a sack, it's a 23% score rate and just an 8% touchdown rate on the drive. We always talk about first down penalties, especially holding penalties that knock you back on the first snap of the drive. You're digging out of a ditch, but those sacks, man, on first down especially, put you in a big any sack on a drive.
Yeah, they set you back, and I've given examples, of say, look at Justin Fields. It's the opening play of the Bears versus Minnesota. It's 1st and 10. They open an empty, 5 wides. Minnesota blitzes the play 1, exactly what you're referring to. Justin Fields is not ready for it. The Bears, he gets sacked. Now the Bears are dealing with 2nd and 18. It's hard to stay on schedule when you're always playing from behind. And that was from the opening snap of a game. And if it's like that the entirety of a game, or like you said, 2 or 3 series, and at the most you get maybe 8 series to 9 series in a game, half your series, you're blowing up yourself because you're not prepared for those blitz situations. And so you got to stay on schedule. Everybody's got a job to do. You've got to communicate it so that you can deal with it effectively to stay on schedule. Otherwise, you're going to be playing from behind, and you're going to be constantly chasing points, playing from behind.
Tom, because of the influx of outstanding pass rushers and all sorts of varieties, and really teams getting really creative with their pressure packages, does this lean more into the running game? Because here's an interesting stat I found. The 2024 season had the fewest combined pass attempts per game in an NFL season in 16 years. So teams ran the ball more. Are we going to continue that phase, do you believe?
Well, I think you have to have a dedicated running game, and then you have to be good at it because it gives you so many opportunities to expand the ability of your offense, and that leads me to play action. Because if you take an offensive line that has some vulnerability in one-on-one pass protection, if you can do it from a quarterback under center out of a play action where it creates an instant of hesitation within the defensive front seven, that's all the advantage you need. And then you talk about the variety of receivers that the Bears have from the backfield to the line of scrimmage to the wide receiver position. That's where I think Ben Johnson's creativity comes into play. His creativity can take and he can help an offensive line if they feel that they're going through stages of development at a position, i.e. left tackle, or just continuity of five guys just coming together.
And Jim, every time there's a pass rusher of note that Tom feels has a weakness as a run, I'd run at him all game. So, can all these guys I just said, Jim and Tom, are we going to run at these guys?
Yeah, I think Ben Johnson's got to press the envelope. And it's going to be the same thing for Caleb Williams. He's going to need a better running game to support him. Well, with all the added assets that's been added up front with Joe Tooney and Drew Dahlman and Jackson, who've been added there, and we already think Darnell Wright is a good power run blocker. That run game is to support the development of a young quarterback. It was missing last year. Staying on schedule was missing last year. To not put him in bad situations of playing from behind or in long yardage situations. So it's all by design put in place to help develop and bring along a young quarterback in Caleb Williams.
All right, coming up next, kicker Cairo Santos joins the program. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
You're tuned into Bears Weekly with Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network. Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. 21 of 25 plus 25 of 26 in extra points. That was the season for Cairo Santos a year ago. Now 33. He has played 150 NFL games and begins his 12th NFL season, 6 with the Bears. And the conversation we had with Tom and I started with Tom discussing footwear and the great Walter Payton.
We used to wear these kangaroos, and they have 7 spikes on. They got 2 in the heel and 5 up on the front of your foot. And so he wore these 1.25-inch cleats in the front of his foot, and he wore shorter ones, these quarter-inch ones in his heel.
Because he ran on his toes. Okay.
And so I was thinking, would a kicker do that? Would they have longer spikes on their plant foot? And so he was.
And the answer is yes, because kickers, like all athletes, you're always looking for a little bit of an edge.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to even look at the footwear.
Yeah, repetition is the name of the game. So you want to have your plant foot, your kicking foot coming through, making contact with the ball exactly the same spot every time. So we even, on my kicking cleat, I shave the studs on the inside, so as I'm brushing the ground, it doesn't catch any grass or turf, so it just kind of brushes, and it doesn't have much grip, so if I have to make a tackle, I better count on.
Do you have a tackle in your career record?
I have a few, but I think only sideline tackles. You're pushing a guy.
Oh, okay, okay.
Out of bounds.
But you haven't wrapped.
Haven't wrapped up. No.
Driven through.
I even have a slide tackle that got me a 15-yard penalty. But
Oh, did it really?
yes, but he saved a touchdown. Yeah, it was
that's
against
that's most important. So every offseason you have a training regimen. And anything different this year that made an impact on you?
No, just had a big chip on my shoulder this season. I felt like it could have been a really good year for me. I kicked the ball well. Didn't feel like I missed a field goal wide all year. Had a few blocked that watching film, they kind of stayed right on path of the center of the uprights after they got blocked. So I think I could have made every kick last year, but definitely didn't work out that way as teams were rushing us pretty heavy and got a few hands on a few of them, but that kind of maybe even hungrier, more of like a killer mentality. And I think that helped me in the last Green Bay game to go in that place with revenge in my mind.
You notice how he said that place.
Yeah.
We all relate.
So, and I kind of took that approach this off season. I want to have the year that I think I could have had last year. But I respect that it's the NFL and there's plenty of professionals on the other side of the field trying to make plays. So it's not something that I think I did wrong, but it's something that I can improve and just get much better.
You brought up the word repetition a little while ago. And so now you're a kicker that you come into the business. Now you're a kicker that you've been in the business for a while, having it done super successfully. How do you learn repetition? Because this was a question that was asked by me by a freshman kicker last year, and I ended up asking you at some point during the season, but you brought it up at this level. How do you know and learn repetition?
And I've adapted year 12 of my career this year, and I feel like I'm still learning things that I can introduce to my routine. Every kick before I kick the ball, I try to control every part of it in the areas that I can control. So, I talk about even like I wait to a certain play clock or a certain number on the play clock to start my approach. So it's a place where I can replicate here at practice. Let's say it's 20 seconds. I wait for the play clock to get to 20 seconds and I start my approach. So when I get in the game, and sometimes, it could be rainy or it could be the refs take a little longer to get the ball in or change the spot or something, and you get caught, and then all of a sudden you're rushing your steps, and so you don't settle into that routine. But if I can control every part of it and repeat that in practice, every single kick, when I get into a game, I just tell myself to repeat my routine, and that takes out the pressure, the noise, who we're playing against, what stadium we're playing, what wind. I just focus on my routine. So I think every year I've learned a way to control what I can control, and I see the results improving year after year, and the amount of kicks that I can make. Yeah.
Is there a worst field condition in the NFL right now? Because we know the Chicago Bears changing their turf the last couple of years. It's been one of the finest surfaces of outdoor stadiums that you can have. Is there a new worst?
Soldier has actually been very enjoyable to play the last couple of years since putting Bermuda. They've done such a good job changing it every certain amount of games. Like, it took that element out of, and which I thought was the worst element kicking it here in Chicago was the field condition, but they made it so good. I would say Cleveland is always kind of chewed up, but they also do a good job taking care of it. I actually didn't love Tampa when a few times we've been down there. It's more uneven than most stadiums, and
plus it might depend on the weather conditions at all these places. What
rains.
time of year you're playing them?
Correct. Yeah, it always rains on some part of either pregame warm up or during the game. It'll get some showers. But that kind of also I grew like from the first year I've been in Chicago, and that was kind of like a element to adapt. You've kind of learned to also just not think about it as much. That's just what we deal with, and then and that improved here, but also allowed me to just not think about the surface as much. Just put the ball down and kind of kick. And when you kind of first introduced to that, you start noticing, wow, like most kickers come to Soldier and even complain about something, the grass is this and that. And to me, it's just normal now.
Right. Yeah.
The wind is this and that. It's like,
let him complain.
I know it's normal to me. It's windy today, and just because it's kind of my world now, and I've learned to succeed in it. Yeah.
Well, like this year, going Baltimore then to Cincinnati, two stadiums that we haven't been in that much, throughout our whole career. So is it kind of an atmosphere that you have to go in and just kind of feel it for a little while before you go out and practice kicking, or is that part of the growth process?
Yeah, definitely. I think you can also learn a lot in watching games, and I try to watch, look at the weather and what the flags are doing. I've talked to kickers who've played in those stadiums. I've played in both of those stadiums. Baltimore is tricky, like right on the harbor. I think it gets swirly. I found Cincinnati it's a heavy crosswind, more like a Kansas City type of wind. It can get windy, but it's more crosswind. versus the swirly. So it's different adjustments you got to feel, like you said, and just rely on your pregame and obviously your experience or information you've gathered to go out and have a game plan. At the end of the day, it comes down to striking the ball well. So like that's one part that you can focus on. If the wind, it becomes something that you're unsure about, just then try to strike the ball well and see what he does.
Hightower's back, so that's big. I obviously for you and just the core special team. I think it's an excellent special teams core. There's some very good football players on the unit, coverage unit, kickoff coverage, kickoff return, you name it. And then, of course, yourself. The new kickoff rule, where are you weighing in on?
Yeah, no, I agree with you about the core. It seems like the main core is back. The Blackwell, Travis Homer, Amon coming back. Those are big pieces in stability and in a unit that finished, I think, top 5 last year. So Hightower, I know, is pumped to have him, and we're pumped to have Hightower also, stay with the staff. And so that continuity, we're looking forward to that very much. And also Hightower is really pumped up about this rule because the return game in Chicago is really what many great players have made a living, and I think we have players in the locker room that see it the same way, that they beg me to kick it short, not kick a touchback, because they want to hunt, they want to make tackles, and now more than ever, field position, we don't want to give them the opportunity to start at 35-yard line with the touchback. So majority of the league, I think, is going to kick the ball and cover.
Yep.
And that's something that's in our identity here in Chicago. So I think it's an advantage, both sides of that play for us.
Last one quickly. As a kicker with a new and first-time head coach, I know Hightower's essentially your boss, right? Your special teams. But do you need to get a relationship with Ben so that there's trust, that he trusts what you're saying and you trust in him?
Yeah, that's
for
important.
Key moments in clutch situations.
Yeah, that's really important. Something we are developing already on the 2-minute drills we're having at practice. For him to trust the range that I tell him. Usually, we communicate before the game. What the yard line, and I want to get those opportunities to hit those long kicks in front of him, so he can build that trust. You're like, okay, like that when he tells me that, like I can really count on that to not make him feel like he has to be as aggressive as he's shown that he can be. If he can rely on 3 points, we want to be there for him.
So a lot of great stuff there from Cairo. A pleasant interview as always. So many things that he works on every year, and that ending discussion about trying to earn the trust of your head coach as soon as possible in terms of clutch situations, key leverage moments in a game. Tom and Jim, that would be, to me, the first step that has to take place during training camp for Cairo. He insinuated, we've been working on that for a while in the offseason, but how critical is that for a new head coach?
I mean, I think it's super critical because you have to go out there in training camp and try to put him in some of the most uncomfortable positions that you can put him in to see how you gain trust in each other. You have to have perfect kicking conditions, and I think that's one of the best things that help the Bears kickers down at Soldier Field is because that surface is so perfect. But, when you start putting him in these uncomfortable scenarios in training camp and you get the defenders to surround him and they start heckling him and everything, it gives you a chance to learn a little bit about Cairo. But when you're talking about his years of experience, he's learned a lot of respect from the league already.
Well, the coach knows his history, but, and I say it all the time, how many games are decided by kickers? There's probably more kickers that deserve to be in the Hall of Fame because they're deciding the outcomes of games. And for Ben Johnson, think about how it's going to affect his play calling. If he knows Santos is good from 50, how does that affect his play calling right before the half, where they can get an easy 3 points before the half, or how he sets up maybe a game-winning drive knowing they need a field goal to win it? Does the ball got to get to the 40 based on the conditions? Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? Hey, we know Santos's history suggests this. So the coach is weighing all this, plus he's seen it in camp through the preseasons of how his kicker is performing and what he has confidence in and what he needs to do play calling wise if it comes to a situation where we need a field goal to win it or tie to give us the best chance to win. And so it's critically important because it could decide the outcome of a game.
Well, Santos, number 10 on the active list among kickers for points scored, number 11 in field goal percentage at 85.5. He's been outstanding at Soldier Field. All right, we return with Tom's thoughts coming up next on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
You're listening to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by IGS Energy. Jeff, Tom, and Jim as we inch towards the start of training camp next week. Time for Tom's thoughts. Tom, I love one of your headlines, a pressure cooker camp. Who is in the pressure cooker for the Bears as camp gets ready to go?
Listen, we've all experienced throughout the course of our career. You know what? There was one time when they drafted Jerry Fontenot in the third round out of Texas A&M, and he's going to come and directly compete against me for my job. So I felt I was going through a pressure cooker camp. And when I look at some of the guys, I look at a guy like Zach Pickens, because he was an interior defensive lineman drafted a couple of years ago. Now he has a new defensive line coach and a new defensive coordinator that's going to expect different things out of him. We've seen the explosiveness out of Zach. We know that he has the ability to play in the NFL, but then they bring in free agents and they draft a guy at that position. So you got to make sure that every single day that you have full pads on or you are out in training camp, then you got to show something that impresses your position coach and that defensive coordinator. So you look at Zach, that's one thing. Then Noah Sewell. Here's a guy, they get rid of Jack Sanborn, step up Noah Sewell. You've been around for a couple years. You understand the working atmosphere of this team. Again, new coaches, new system. What can you contribute immediately, not only on special teams, but as that third linebacker, because there's other competition that they brought in at the linebacker position. Roshan, here's a running back. He's got all the skills, everything that you need out of him. But when you bring in another running back who's got that same similar skill set, how are they going to distribute that carries and then the protections that they're going to put you in? Tyler Scott, we've seen him. He's got speed. How do you create more speed on this offense? Is you have to have fast guys. Tyler Scott is that guy, but you look in, you bring in Rome last year, you bring in a couple of free agents this year. He is on that. He's at pressure camp. And then Karan Amagaji. And the only reason I say this is because, they're going to explore him at the left tackle position. And I think he's got the skill mentally and physically to play the position. But if he can't play left tackle, then where can he play? Where does his template fit best? Is he going to move into guard and start creating competition there? So when I think of pressure, it's not an insult, or I'm not saying, wow, these guys better look over their shoulder. I'm just saying each of these guys have an opportunity to impress this training camp, to show the coaching staff what they can do.
And Jim, I look at numbers of people at certain positions. So I brought this up in our podcast with Tom the other day, talk about competitive spots, about the best battles. There are 19 defensive backs on this training camp roster. You got to carry a lot, obviously, for training camp, but there's a sprinkling of veterans in there, too, that have some attachment to the current coaching staff. Guys that have been around the league a little bit, guys that impressed on special teams last year. I think that's going to be also a pressure cooker for those other spots outside the starting five defensive backs, as we assume that they are right now.
You've got a history of players that understand the schemes of what the coach is asking for. I think that plays a part in it. And I do think the injury history of a lot of guys play into it. We've talked a lot about Brisker. Is he going to be healthy? Can he play all 17 games? So the backup safety spot is a position that's got to be pretty solid, just with this history and what's happened. Younger players got to continue to develop that we've talked about, whether it's Stevenson, whether it's the other young corners that are out there for the Bears, and communication is always a key. So, I think it's highly competitive. I do like the secondary. I do like the talent that is there, and we'll see how it all comes together.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty raucous bunch back there. Again, they're tone setters back there. They're loud and proud. Another one from Tommy, and I'll start with Jim on Tommy's topic. Who's the best fit at QB2 on game day? There is a competition there between Tyson Bagent and Case Keenum. Camp's going to decide, I'm sure, but are there other factors, and what's your opinion on it?
I think if all things are equal, you'd always defer to the younger player. but the coach for experience matters. Maybe it's something where week by week it could change, that maybe they want the veteran experience one week of Case, and maybe another week it would fluctuate. But I would think Tyson Bagent, in my opinion, he's a sought-after commodity. I think this kid has proven quite a bit. I think now he's a little bit more experienced, granted not playing time-wise, but he's a grinder, so to speak. He's got a lot of traits you like and want to develop, and I do think he's a gamer. I'm expecting him to win that second-string battle, personally, and really for Case Keenum, it'll be more of a support experience thing for him as the third QB, just helping those two guys along in their development.
I go along with Jim. I always, youth is really something that can be an asset when you talk about the quarterback position. But I do think camp will decide it. And I think Ben Johnson, when he's the guy that knows this offense the best, he's going to understand the performance of the quarterback. Are the questions being answered instantaneously in the meeting room? Are the decisions being made in 7-on-7 and 1-on-1s to the point where the ball should go? When you're doing small things just like a mirror drill, is the timing to your pass as perfect as you need it? So there's a lot of decisions that Ben's going to be able to make through observances, but I think Tyson has proved to this organization and this team that he's a dedicated young guy and he's got a high skill level.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Tyson Bagent. All right, one more segment to go. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
You're tuned into Bears Weekly with Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network. This is Bears Weekly with the voice of the Bears for 24 years, Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. Jeff, Tom, and Jim, as we wrap things up, a couple of topics. Jim, you touched on Jaquan Brisker. When he's played, when he started all. If he's healthy, he's starting 35 games in his career, but he's put up some really good numbers, which has me so excited about him, and he is one of my Bears of significance this season because of the type of play caller, I assume, and seen that Dennis Allen is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. So this man can be let loose and fly around and make plays. When he's around the ball, great things happen. 13 pass breakups, 249 tackles, 3 picks. He should have had many more. He admits that. They've been on his hands. He hasn't collected them all. 6 sacks, which speaks to blitzing. 11 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles because he is a force hitter, and 2 fumble recoveries. I don't want to we talk a lot about, obviously, a nickel like Kyler Gordon and the significance of a man corner that can get in your face and be very, very impactful in Jalen Johnson. What we see as potential in Tyreek Stevenson to continue to grow. But what happens at safety is going to be utterly important given the type of defensive style Dennis Allen wants to employ.
Yeah, I think when we bring up all those stats about Brisker, it suggests he's a better in-the-box player, because he can blitz, because he can disrupt, because he causes fumbles. So I think he'll have a role active to the line of scrimmage at the snap of a ball and how he's going to be utilized. But again, health is going to determine that. And if he were to miss games, because I think when you look at both him and Kevin Byard, they're both over 200 pounds. So they can be rock and roll safeties where you're, having both in the box and going to affect things similarly, and it'll affect the offense because they don't know which one's going to be down there because they're used in a similar manner. But when he's out, then that's when things can be affected because I think Josh Blackwell, when he's played safety, or Elijah Hicks, I think they've been effective, but I don't think they're the same in the box guys that really can affect and disrupt the line of scrimmage. So things would have to be played differently. So again, it's the adjustments. It's what the player can do versus the players that can't, and that'll decide or determine how aggressive really Dennis Allen can get defensively. But with Brisker on the field, they're better with him on the field, and I would think he is going to be somewhere close to the line of scrimmage where he does his best work.
Jeff, can I put an asterisk to this?
Yeah.
Because I think when you talk about the interior of the Bears secondary, and you talk about the safety position, and they're both high quality guys, I think they're all tied to Kyler Gordon, because the versatility that he brings from the second level, even up to the first level, to the third level, he can add a lot to that safety dimension of this defense. But he's also a guy that has to stay healthy and stay on the field, because there was a couple of years ago when we were uncertain about who was going to play in the defensive backfield because of multiple injuries back there. So if you can get this group of guys to stay healthy for the long term, then you're talking about a defense that can increase its versatility because of the versatility of every one of those players.
I want to talk wide receiver before we wrap things up. Jim, I have this snapshot in my mind of DJ Moore at Washington 2 years ago when he had the game of his career, blowing through the secondary, getting free, yards after the catch, breaking tackles, the suddenness, and he is still wide receiver one for the Chicago Bears. But how much now around him and how Ben Johnson's creativity will fall in here will make him even more dangerous and maybe give him a real big boost this season, because it's not just him. It's Roma Dunze, it's Luther Burden, it's Olamide Zaccheaus. It's, we've touched on all these. It's the two tight ends. Could he blow up this year and just go crazy?
Yeah, I do. I still think he's a coverage dictator where he can open up a lot of things for other guys, but it's got to start somewhere, because if he continues to do what he does, week one, teams are still going to come in covering him as the number one guy. But if Ben Johnson is able to establish, say, over a 4-week period, that the tight ends are getting the ball more, or Roma Dunze, teams will start dedicating their coverage towards the other guys, and now DJ Moore will have a chance to explode. Plus, he's always going to be a part of play action if the run game is a possibility, because they're going to dedicate more players to the line of scrimmage to stop the run, and that could leave good one-on-ones on the outside for DJ Moore for home run opportunities. So it's critical. There's a nice buffet that Caleb Williams, the quarterback of the Bears, has to choose from, because I think the weapons are legitimate and they're as good as any in the league, quite frankly, of what they can do on paper. But they have to do it on the field, and that will dictate a lot of how much DJ Moore will be able to eat here in 2025.
All right, boys, the pieces are in place. Jim, I believe this is the last show for you during the off-season. Camp now begins, so you're gallivanting across football country, and then we will visit with you from time to time during the season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week, Jeff. It'll start for you and I at Bears Camp, the 24th and 25th, so let's get this party started.
Big Jim, you and I would be remiss if we didn't wish a happy birthday to our host, Jeff Joniak.
Oh.
And if we signed off without saying happy birthday and gushing over him, I know he's 10 years older than you, Jim Miller. You didn't even know who he was when you were born. But on this July 17th day, it's Jeff's birthday.
Happy birthday, Jeff.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for not singing. That's going to wrap us up. Thanks to our listeners and our producers, and to Cairo Santos. For Tom Thayer and Jim Miller, I'm Jeff Joniak. This has been Bears Weekly on the radio home of the Chicago Bears, ESPN Chicago. Chris Bleck is next. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Chicago Bears Network presentation of Bears Weekly, hosted by the Mayor of Bearsville, Jeff Joniak, and Surfmaster Tom Thayer. Podcasts are available on the Chicago Bears official app, brought to you by Verizon and Apple Podcasts. Bears Weekly has been brought to you by Miller Lite.